welcome to this week's What's for Dinner video. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be showing you 3 different meals I made this past week. I don't always follow recipes exactly, but if you're interested, I've linked some similar recipes down below. The first dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made a chicken enchilada soup. It has finally started raining here in the Bay Area in California, so I decided to make some fall soup, and this turned out super good. So I am starting out with this soup. I am cutting up part of an onion. This is just a yellow sweet onion, probably about 1/3 of an onion, and I'm going to dice these up into small pieces. Then these will be sauteed into the soup. So the next step is optional. I'm just going to cut up 1 jalapeno pepper into some nice rounds like this, and these will go just on top of the soup as some garnish. These definitely added some nice spice to the soup because I love spicy food, but this is totally optional. Next, we're going to work on the masa mixture. This is just kind of a thickener, but it also gives the corn flavor to the soup. I am using about 1 cup of the masa, and then I'm doing some warmed up chicken broth and just kind of using as much as I need to make this like thick pancake consistency. I would be careful if you don't like the taste of corn or say tamales. Don't add too much of this because this definitely gives it that flavor. So next we're going to start making the soup and combining everything. So I just added a little bit of vegetable oil to the bottom of a pot, and then I'm going to saute these onions until they are nice and soft. Next, I'm going to add in some spices. I'm using some cumin and some chili powder, so I'm just going to throw a couple teaspoons of that in with the onions, and then I'm going to stir that all around. The Mexican flavor will come from a lot of these spices, so definitely be generous and taste as you go. Next, I'm going to add in a small can of some diced green chilies. This is usually what I put in my enchiladas, so this is where the flavor of that enchilada will come from. And then I'm going to add in a teaspoon of some taco seasoning. Next, I decided to add in a little bit of these fire roasted diced tomatoes. I don't think we really like tomatoes, so I just did a little bit. I really didn't even have to do this, but I did buy the can, so I just decided to add a little bit. So next is where you want to add in all your broth. I am using just 1 tall glass to add as much water as I think I need. I did use a lot of water, which made a lot of soup. Luckily, my mom likes leftovers as well, so I gave her some. And then I added in my chicken bouillon powder, so that makes this chicken broth. Next, I'm going to add in some corn. I started out with about half of a can and half of a can of beans. And I'm also going to add in my masa mixture slowly, just kind of incorporate however much that I think that I need. So I did cook 3 whole chicken breasts and shredded them up. So that is what I'm going to add to the soup. I guess it was a good thing that I added as much broth as I did because I had a lot of chicken. Somewhere I did cut out that I added in some chunks of Velveeta cheese. I think I used probably a half a block of Velveeta and just chopped them up into some squares and threw them in to melt. I am adding a little bit more corn because I do like corn. To also thicken up the soup, I did use some cornstarch slurry. I'm going to add in a little bit more of the taco seasoning and some cumin for some more flavor, and then this soup is basically done. This is how everything looked when it was done. I just topped it with some cheddar cheese, some cilantro, avocado, and the jalapenos. The next dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made some hibachi at home with some steak, fried rice, and some veggies. So I'm starting out by cutting up my vegetables first. I am using some zucchini and some yellow sweet onion. I'm just going to chop up the vegetables into some small chunks, and then these will be sauteed on a pan. So next I'm going to work on cutting up my meat. I am using a sirloin steak, and I'm just going to cut these up into some small bite-sized pieces. So next I'm going to work on seasoning the steak. I'm going to use some steak seasoning, a little bit of oil, and some garlic and herb seasoning with some pepper. So I'm going to toss that all around, make sure everything is coated, and then we will get started cooking. So I'm going to first get started with my fried rice. I did cook 1 cup of white rice the day before. That is the trick to making fried rice. You need it to be cooked ahead of time to be dried out. So I'm just going to start out with my vegetables, some peas and carrot mixture. This is just from my freezer. That is why it is so frozen. So I'm just going to cook these until they are softened. So next I'm going to add some eggs to my fried rice. I like to add scrambled eggs to my fried rice. So I'm going to crack 2 eggs and let that scramble on the one side. So next I'm going to add in my white rice. I cooked the day before and set it out on this tray in the fridge. So I'm just going to toss that around and let the heat warm up the rice and loosen it up. Next, I'm going to give the fried rice some flavor. I'm going to add in some soy sauce and some hoisin sauce. This is all to taste. I also did add a little bit of sriracha for some spice. For some more flavor, I'm going to add in some garlic powder and some onion powder. So I set aside the rice and I'm going to work on sauteing the veggies first before I do the steak, because I want the steak to be the most fresh. So I'm going to cook the onions first before I add in the zucchini, because I want the onions to be nice and browned. So once the onions had cooked down a little bit and developed some color, I decided to add in my zucchini. So I just cooked these together until everything developed a little bit of color. So after the veggies were done, the last step was to cook the steak. So I just threw this on a pan with a little bit of leftover oil. I let it cook on the one side so it could become nice and brown, and then I'm just going to toss it around and flip them. So this is when the steak was just about done. I made sure to scrape up the bottom of the pan because that is where all the flavor is. This is how everything looked when it was done. Definitely so good and worth all of the work. The last meal I'm going to be showing you was definitely my easy meal of the week. I made some pesto, meatballs, salad, and some garlic bread. So I'm just going to spray a small cookie sheet and throw on some frozen meatballs. These are my favorite. They are the Kirkland ones from Costco, and I just threw these in the oven. So next, I just cooked one full box of spaghetti noodles and drained them and threw them back in this pot. Now I'm going to toss in this pesto and mix it all into the noodles. You of course cannot forget to add the Parmesan cheese. I'm just going to throw in some grated Parm from the can and some Tony's Creole seasoning. We love pesto for an easy weeknight dinner. It almost feels like cheating. This is how everything looked when it was done. We just threw on a little side salad and I made some garlic bread for the husband. Thank you so much for watching this week's What's for Dinner video. Make sure you come back next week for another one.